Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson, founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. Consider checking out the Teach the Geek to Speak Society. It's a monthly membership to help STEM professionals with their public speaking. You can learn more about it at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Jill Tietjen. She is an electrical engineer who worked for decades in the electric utility industry, even serving as an expert witness before public utility commissions and other government agencies. She now heads Technically Speaking, consulting with utility companies, serving on boards, and speaking on a variety of topics, one of which is engineers' impact on the world. I'm interested to learn more about her schooling, her work in the utilities industry, and her moves to being self-employed. Welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Jill.
It's a pleasure to be here, Neil.
So from the bit of research I did on you, Jill, I saw that you got a degree in applied mathematics with a minor in electrical engineering. So what was the motivation to do the major and then have the minor?
Well, that's an interesting story. I grew up in Virginia. My dad was an engineer at NASA at the Langley Research Center. For those people that have seen the movie Hidden Figures, that's actually where it's based. So my dad had to know all of the women who were in that movie. And I wanted to go to the University of Virginia, but nobody told me that I should consider engineering as a possible profession. I loved calculus, I loved math, and I entered the university as a math major in the College of Arts and Sciences. But I realized during my first semester that I needed to be in the engineering school. That was what was calling me. I saw what the students were studying, and so I made the arrangements with the dean and transferred. And I saw that there was an applied mathematics major in the engineering school. I thought, how perfect, I'll just do that. And then the applied math major required a minor. And I picked electrical engineering as my minor.
What's the difference between math and applied math?
You know, I'm not actually really sure that there's much of a difference. I think applied math is what I was going to say is applying mathematics to engineering problems. And I think that sometimes mathematics, pure mathematics, is viewed as a foundation of research for research.
Gotcha. But then I also saw that you got an MBA. What prompted you to get that degree?
Well, when I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina with my first husband and went to work for Duke Power Company, I was pretty intent on getting a master's degree in something. And at that point in time, I couldn't get a master's degree in Charlotte at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I would have had to actually establish residency in South Carolina and go to Clemson University for my master's in electrical engineering. So I got an MBA, and it's actually been a wonderful combination to have the engineering degree with the master's in business.
Wow. So you're saying that if it was possible for you to have gotten a master's in engineering, you might have gotten that instead of the MBA?
Probably I would have done it, but I might have then gotten the MBA later.
Oh, okay, because you're certainly not the first person that I've had on the channel that got an engineering degree and then got an MBA, but it kind of sounded like the MBA wasn't necessarily your first option, but it certainly isn't a uncommon option.
True. And what was motivating me at that point in time was that I learned that my applied math degree wasn't accredited by ABET. And so I thought in order to enhance my credentials, it made more sense for me to get a master's in electrical engineering. But then that wasn't really an option the way things unrolled at that point in time personally. And so I got an MBA, and I'm very, very grateful that I have that combination, the engineering degree with the MBA.
Oh man, did you say your applied math degree was not accredited?
Correct.
Damn. All that work to get into the engineering school, and now you're out there looking for work, and you find out your degree's not accredited. Oh.
Well, the way I found out was I took the fundamentals of engineering exam, which I passed.
Right.
And when I passed it, the Commonwealth of Virginia sent me a letter that said, congratulations, you've passed the exam. Because your degree is not accredited, will require more years of experience before we issue you the certificate. And my first husband was a nuclear engineer, and his letter said, congratulations, you've passed the fundamentals of engineering exam, and your certificate's in the mail. And so, you know, that that outright difference from the beginning. That's the start of my career. I started working in June. I got this letter in July or August. That's one of the first things that happens. Plus, Duke Power wouldn't title me as an engineer because my degree was in applied math. And so, so it formed, that degree not only served me well, it also formed a lot of the activities that I've done subsequently.
So you're saying that I know you said that you started off in math, you went into applied math. If you had just picked electrical engineering as your major and maybe applied math as your minor, you wouldn't have had all these issues?
Correct.
Good.
But I didn't know that. No, nobody did what was called career counseling or guidance counseling or anything like that.
Man.
Whatever advice I got was bad advice along the way. So, but it served me very well. I did simulation models my whole career of the electric utility system and how it operates. And so the background that I had was very good for doing that with the MBA. So I don't regret it. I mean, it steered me in a good direction. It just, there were obstacles along the way, like there are for everyone.
No question. Well, I'm glad it worked out. So Mia, I did mention in the intro that you worked in the utilities industry. Was that always the goal when you graduated from school, or is that just something you fell into?
I absolutely fell into it. I had no goal. My goal, well, no, that's not true. I had a goal. I was engaged and I wanted to get married.
Okay.
And first husband was a nuclear engineer and Duke Power wanted him. So they got me. And so it was a wonderful opportunity for me to be in system planning and to learn about the operation of electric utilities and to simulate both the production costing and the capacity expansion, which means what are the next power plants to build and how to build them, and starting to learn about renewable energy resources in the 1970s, way before they became very popular. And so no, it wasn't something that I intended to do at all. It just was a wonderful serendipity.
Man, it seems like a lot of your life tended to work out that way, just based on the conversation we've had so far.
All of it. I keep my eyes open for opportunities. In fact, I have an ebook in the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, the IEEE Women in Engineering series, and it's called Taking Advantage of Opportunities. When opportunities came my way, I took advantage of them, usually not having any understanding, A, of how much work it was going to be, and B, where it would lead.
I see. Was it ever an issue in the utilities industry for you to move into perhaps roles or projects you wanted to do, and not having that engineering degree was an obstacle you had to overcome?
Not once I got licensed.
Okay.
Once I got my FE certificate, which was after 2 years of experience, from that point on, I never had an issue. I got licensed. I took the PE exam as soon as I could when I moved to Colorado and passed and got my license. And the day I get the renewal notice, I renew. So I'm never not going to be licensed. And I never really needed the license, but no, well, I did need the license, but I never stamped anything. And I just think that once I established my credibility and once I was licensed, there was never an issue after that.
Got it. I know a number of engineers that take that FE exam, but don't necessarily follow up with the PE exam. What would be the benefit of becoming a PE?
Well, since I served on the state licensing board in Colorado for quite a number of years, and also as an officer for the National Council of Examiners for Engineering and Surveying, I do strongly believe in licensure. And what I tell anyone that I talk to who asks me the kind of question that you do is it's an insurance policy. You never know what's going to happen in your life. You never know what's going to happen in your career. And I think it's like using a helmet when you ride a motorcycle. Having that licensure enables you to do almost anything later. You might not think you need it now, but you don't know about next year or 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And you should take that license exam, both of them, as soon as you can. Keep that registration and licensing current in case you need it. And if you're going to go out on your own, you're going to need it.
Gotcha. You know, I was having a conversation with an acquaintance not too long ago, Joe, and we were talking about about getting that first job. And oftentimes when you're coming out of school, there's a lot of industries that and just even subsets of industries that you may not know about. And you might, if someone even tells you about them, you might not be all that interested in them because you're more interested in the ones that you actually know. What do you think of the idea of having to be very passionate about that first job that you get into, as opposed to getting into something that maybe you don't know all that much about, but then developing that passion later?
Well, since that's what I did, I actually think that it's not a bad career path. And there's so many things we don't know about. I tell people when I talk to so many groups like the Daughters of the American Revolution and the American Association of University Women and all of these kinds of people. And somebody asked me, what do you read? Well, I read Power magazine. I read Power Engineering. I read Transmission and Distribution World. And people just look at me and they say, there are magazines like that? And I say, yeah, just like there are for every other area. And I fell into, as we've already discussed, I fell into my career path, and I can't imagine a more satisfying career than being in the infrastructure industry, being in the electric utility industry, providing the electricity, which is making what we're doing right now, you and me having this conversation, possible. And so keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. You may think you're passionate about one thing, but you may find that you're more passionate about something else. Explore opportunities, keep on learning. All of those things are so important.
Yeah, you know what you just said. He is it's essentially what the acquaintance I was having the conversation said about being open. Oftentimes when we're coming out of school, we at least for the ones that were always interested in being engineers and went into engineering school knowing, at least quote unquote, knowing what they wanted to do. They come out of school with a laser focus. I want to do this, and if it's not this, then it's X'd off the list immediately. This guy was a mechanical engineer coming out of school, and he said he wanted to design roller coasters. Well, he's never designed a roller coaster in his life. He ended up going into the energy industry, and he's been in there for maybe close to 2 decades at this point, and he loves it. So, but if he had been more closed off and thought energy, there's no way, I don't even know about energy, I don't care to know about energy, I'm going to design roller coasters. Well, then he wouldn't be in this industry that he's loved for almost 2 decades. So I think you're right. It's really important to be open to possibilities.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then I also saw I also said in my intro that you eventually started Technically Speaking. What was the motivation for you to strike out on your own?
Through the series of jobs that I had, it became clear to me that I loved the consulting industry, but that I wasn't necessarily a good corporate industrial citizen. You
don't like taking orders, Jill? Is that what you're trying to say?
Exactly. I like giving them. I'm a very, very hard worker. I'm highly motivated. I work 7 days a week. I'm a very stern taskmaster, is what I say. But when I do it for myself, then I get satisfaction from it more so. I mean, there were incidents along the way that basically led me to think that maybe I didn't want to stay in corporate America. And then actually I spent 3.5 years as the director of the Women in Engineering program at the University of Colorado at Boulder, where I know that sounds like that's a state job, and I know that it sounds like all the money's taken care of, but it isn't. My salary was paid, but I had to raise the money to pay my assistants, to do other kinds of things, to do programming. And in that 3.5 years, I was effectively running my own little small business. And so at the end of that point in time, when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next, and I thought about it for quite a number of years, I just said, no, I'm going out on my own, because I don't really, I don't like some of the politics that occur in corporate America.
Yeah, I get you. I kind of feel the same way. I was a great worker too. And but the idea of just working on the things that you actually want to work on, as opposed to what a company says that you should or have to work on, I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to focus on the things that I like, as opposed to, what other people told me I'm supposed to do. Maybe I'm like you. Maybe I don't like being told what to do either. I wasn't a very good corporate citizen either. Especially now, we're in corporate now because of COVID. People got used to staying at home, and now they're being told, you have to come back into the work.
Right, and they don't want to go back.
They don't want to go back. I'm telling you, I'm so glad that that's something that I don't have to deal with. Can you imagine sitting in the cubicle, Jill, and the person in the cubicle next to you starts to cough, and you're looking at them all hard like this person has COVID. I know it. What the hell are they doing here? But you have to be there because the company says you have to be there. Like, nah, man, I ain't doing all that. I'm gonna do my own thing.
Well, but from the corporate board standpoint, which you also mentioned in my introduction, there are actually a lot of concerns about what that means to corporate culture. And for those companies who have a very strong corporate culture and who pride themselves on that culture, there are some pretty significant ramifications if people are not in the office and don't know their coworkers.
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, that corporate culture that's so strong in that company, that's not my concern. I'm not going into the cubicle. I'm not going into the cubicle. That's it.
It's an interesting dilemma.
Yeah, no question. I'm glad I don't have to deal with it on either side. So I mentioned also in the intro your speaking topic on the importance of engineers to the future of society. I really like that topic. How did you come to that?
Oh my goodness. All right. So this is a pretty long story and I'll try to condense it. But when I was at Duke Power, my boss recognized my speaking ability and had me join the training and be trained as a member of Duke Power's Speakers Bureau. So I would go out to Rotary clubs and garden clubs and all kinds of organizations and talk about energy conservation and nuclear power and load management and the need for electricity. And when I moved to Denver, I became very involved in the Society of Women Engineers and began speaking to kids and adults and schools and all kinds of opportunities. And then through my consulting career, I began serving as an expert witness where I was trained and to be also a speaker. Every time I actually was getting ready to appear as an expert witness, I had what was called witness prep, which is getting ready to be trained. And at one particular instance in the early 90s, I actually trained all weekend, all Saturday and all Sunday, at the end of which you can ask me any question you want, like, why is the sky blue? And I can tell you because that way we can provide safe, economic, and reliable power. And so the answer to almost every question. And so I actually speak on a variety of topics. I have 10 books published to date. And I'm very active in writing women back into history. But one of the things I also speak about is I call it building bridges to tomorrow. And that's the need for engineers, the need for the infrastructure, which finally, the United States Congress has passed a bill on infrastructure and will help move us forward there. As a country, we're very good at building new projects and we're very bad at maintaining those projects. And so, roads, potholes in roads and the electric grid and all of those things. And so it's very important for the public to understand why we need infrastructure. What is the value of infrastructure? The electric utility business has done such a good job of keeping the lights on that no one understands how hard that is, just like the provision of clean water, just like the provision of food, just like the provision of almost everything that's in our lives. Although right now we're starting to understand with the supply chain issues that it's much more complex than what we thought. And so why is engineering important and what do engineers do that help make the world a better place? And why would someone want to be interested in doing that? And that's what I talk about.
Nice. I appreciate the fact that you're talking about infrastructure and the need to maintain it, Jill. I live in Southern California now, but before that, I lived in Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. And the roads there were absolutely horrendous. I remember just driving like potholes all over the place. I remember thinking, these damn potholes are going to take years off my car. I need to get out of here.
They would. Okay, so interesting thought. If we move to higher percentage of electric vehicles, which we're doing, we are moving forward with electric vehicles. Where does the money come that actually fixes those potholes. It comes from the gasoline tax. If you are not buying gasoline because you now have an electric vehicle and you're charging your electric vehicle, where are those dollars going to come from to maintain the roads? So I've actually moved to a point where I'm at the intersection of policy and engineering, public policy and thinking about public policy. And that's what you do on a corporate board. You're thinking about policy and strategic planning. How are the things that we're doing going to impact where we're going in the future?
Okay, I see. I got you. Well, hopefully your words are being heard by many, especially the people, especially the government in Massachusetts, so they fix those damn roads.
They have a lot of competing priorities, and it's another interesting issue where if you have, well, you can't see both of my hands, but if you need this big a pot of money, but you only have this big a pot of money, then where do you allocate those funds? It's a very interesting dilemma.
No question. Well, I know I have the answer. It's fix the road so that I'm happy, because my happiness is number one priority.
It is to you.
When it comes to presenting in front of people, even my goal in even developing this YouTube channel and podcast is to provide help for people that are in the technical fields in presenting, because oftentimes we're not known to be the best at presenting in front of people. When it comes to the presentations that you do, Jill, do you have a process for putting them together? And if so, what is it?
Well, I want to start a little bit farther back than that. And I hope that I remember to answer your question.
Yeah,
but so when I was in college, at the University of Virginia, as an undergraduate engineering student at the time, you were required to do an undergraduate thesis. That was a requirement for graduation. And my statics professor hired me to be his graduate student's research assistant. And I did a topic and I did research on the mechanical performance of polyglycolic acid sutures. So what does that mean? That means that if you have ever had surgery where sutures have been put inside you, those are dissolvable sutures. Those are polyglycolic acid sutures. And at the time, they were just being developed, and there was concern among the medical community as to whether they would work. And as a result of my working on this thesis, I wrote some papers, and my boss, the professor, said, you're going to join the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and you're going to put in an abstract to present at the American Society of Mechanical Engineers Regional Student Conference. So I joined ASME. I submitted an abstract, and my abstract was accepted. There were 10 students presenting papers that day. This is 1976, 9 boys and me. And I was last. So that meant I got to wait all day, nerves just increasing all day. And then I actually went and heard the boy present before me. He was from Clemson, and the first thing he did was attack the University of Virginia in his comments.
Okay.
Which was meant to upset me, which was actually fairly effective.
Yeah, remember all these years later. Absolutely.
So when I got up to speak, I was shaking. My knees were shaking, my arms were shaking, everything was shaking. I was incredibly nervous. I had to defend my alma mater, but more than that, my knees were shaking so badly, I was gripping the side of the podium because I actually thought I wasn't going to be able to stand up. And I got through, defending my alma mater, gave my presentation, and actually won second place in the competition. But one of the things that I decided was that I was never going to be that nervous again. And when Duke Power offered me the opportunity to be trained for the Speakers Bureau, 2.5 days of intensive training that included videotaping and presentations and practices and integration of materials, everything, I leaped at the opportunity. And so what I say to people now is you practice and you practice and you practice until you know the material, and you ask yourself the questions that you don't want other people to ask you, but that you prepare answers to, so that in case they ask you, you know the answers. And then you remember that you are the expert, but you prepare and you prepare and you prepare. And so what I do now is I prepare. And if I need to, I time it. And if I need to, I practice in front of a mirror. And if I need to, I have someone listen to me. And so I do all of those things in order to make sure that I am ready to talk, and that I know my material, and that I've covered what I said I would cover, and that whatever I told the person that I coordinated my talk with, that I am actually meeting their requirements.
I think it's really smart that you place such an emphasis on practicing beforehand. I have a friend who makes fun of me because I'm a big fan of practicing presentations before. He's more of a spontaneous type of speaker. But I'll tell you something, Jill, it's rather obvious to me when he gives presentations that he didn't practice them beforehand. There's a whole lot of fillers, so, and for somebody like my mother, for instance, that's a no-go.
That's a killer.
That's a killer. It's like she'll stop listening after one too many so's or one too many ums. She'll just tune out completely.
Or so too many you knows. Yeah.
Too many you knows, absolutely. Too many filler words. So I'm a big fan of practicing. And I really like your point about timing. We oftentimes we have a number of minutes given to us for us to present. And when people go over, I think it's just disrespectful to the audience. If you're given 15 minutes, don't go over 15 minutes. So I'm a big fan of what you said about that too. And then also anticipating questions. That's smart to do, so that you're not that sweaty mess, or that shaking mess that you were standing at the podium.
I was a shaking mess, let me tell you. Yes, I was.
Who knows? Maybe you could have gotten first if you weren't. But well, I guess we'll never know. But I'm a big fan of what you said about anticipating questions. And then even if you get a question that you don't know the answer to, don't act like you do, because there very well could be someone in the audience that actually knows the answer and then calls you out. And then everyone questions everything you said beforehand. Well, if they're lying about the answer to this, why should we believe anything that came before this? And now I just wasted my whole time giving this damn presentation. No one thinks, right. No one believes me anymore.
Right, right. And that's one of the things that you're taught when you're going through expert witness prep. If you don't know, you say, I don't know. But you can say in testifying and in speaking, I don't know that answer. Come up and speak with me afterwards. I'll get your contact information and I will get you an answer.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's more than appropriate. Well, Jill, this has been great speaking with you. Thank you for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
Email jill.s@gmail.com is a good way. LinkedIn also works.
Okay, excellent. Well, everybody, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson, founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. Consider checking out the Teach the Geek to Speak Society. It's a monthly membership where you can get help in your public speaking journey. You can learn more about it at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you, Neil.